everybody. Welcome to the Rooted and Blooming podcast. This is a space where we are rooted in Christ and blooming in purpose. Plug in, get yourself a drink because you're in for a ride. In today's episode, I actually want us to unpack why most of us do actually settle, see the red flags and we ignore, but by the time we realize it's a bit too late and you have lost yourself, you have lost relationships, friendships, family, you've lost your finances, maybe you've lost your home, you yourself, you cannot even find yourself. You're depressed or something. So I want us to see why we get to that point and yet we saw all the red flags and we ignored them. When emotions override discernment. Most of the time, people walk through red flags because they are emotionally attached. When you're emotionally attached or emotionally invested, this is the place where we see potential and we see too much of the potential that we tend to negotiate with the warning signs that are being thrown at us. You're in a relationship with someone, you can see the red flags, but because maybe they have a PhD or maybe they have a good secured job or their business is running very well, at the end of the day, you're like, no, they're going to change. You are looking at the potential at the expense of the red flags. This actually happens most of the time when we fall in love with the idea of someone, maybe who they are going to become in the future, where they are going. Maybe if you are dating, like for example, an MCA, and this guy is a walking red flag, a walking, breathing red flag. But in the future, you can see his political career is going to lead to him being maybe like a senator, a governor, eventually the president or something, or maybe just the senator and the governor. And you feel like, okay, that's potential. And I feel like I want to be the governor's wife. Excuse me. You're literally falling in love with the idea of the person this person is going to be instead of falling in love with the evidence that you're seeing. So you tend to blind one eye to the evidence and the other eye is focused on the idea of this person and who they are going to be. One thing that I came to learn, or a trick that I came to come up with, is have a notebook and split it into two. One side write red flags and this other side write your deal breakers, such that the moment you're starting to be emotionally invested, let me tell you, the moment your heart takes over, your mind leaves the WhatsApp group and it's not thinking. And even if you see red flags, that's the moment that your mind stops thinking because your heart already took over. So when you have these two lists, you are able, before you enter into a relationship or any entanglement, what you do is you write the red flags that you feel like you cannot tolerate, and over here you write the deal breakers. If these red flags are repeated thrice during your dating season or your courtship or whatever, it's time for you to walk out and go. And then when you see a deal breaker, you will be able to know that now when I've seen this deal breaker, it's time for me to even leave. This notebook is going to remind you when your mind has shut down and you're using your heart, it's going to remind you your limits and how far these people can come. Low self-worth, it normally normalizes bad behavior. If you grew up around chaos, disrespect, or manipulation, red flags feel like a norm to you. Disrespect feels like a norm to you. When someone disrespects you, do not feel like it is wrong. It's something that you have been accustomed to. We often tolerate what we have been conditioned to tolerate, and that came with our upbringing. Most of us, I know most of my listeners have been brought up by African parents. When you do something, your parent just calls, our parents used to call us names. And some names were too toxic and too bad, such that by the time you're getting into a relationship, you do not have a sense of high worth because you're already accustomed to insults. You're already accustomed to disrespect. You do not have boundaries. You do not have a say to what you want. You do not have autonomy. And you have reached to a point where these things are a norm to you, such that anytime you see a red flag, disrespect, or anything, it's normal. And that's how we end up getting to that point. Let me give you guys an example of a story that happened yesterday with my daughter. It was in the evening. She came from school. She was playing. And then a few minutes before the time where she's supposed to come back home reached, she came. And when she came straight to me, and she came with a gloomy face, and she told me, so and so, this boy, we were playing with the kids, and then this boy just came up to me and he called me this particular name, which I cannot mention here. And I was like, what? What did he do? Why did he do that? So I wanted to first understand the story and know how they got to that point first. At this point, I was happy because she knows there is a limit to the conversation. There are names that are not okay, and you're not supposed to call me this particular name. And she came and she was so angry, and she came and told me, can you imagine he called me that? So the first thing I asked her, what did you do after he called you that? And she told him, sawa. And then she came up and she knew she's going to come and tell her mom, and her mom is going to, defend her, of which I was going to defend her, because I'm not going to leave her like that. But at this point, there are some things that I actually go into them and help her sort them out, but there are some things that I allow her to sort them out herself. So for this one, it was a bit on the extreme, and I felt like I needed to talk to the parent. So I told her, go bring because I was in my pajamas, go bring my robe, go bring me a bonnet, let's go. So as we were going down, she was so excited, like, mommy is defending me. This boy will see. So at this point, I knew she has learned how she already knows her boundaries, that someone is not supposed to disrespect me like this, they're not supposed to talk to me like this, and they're not supposed to tell me this. But what she has not completely learned is how to handle such situations, because she's still young, she's 10. And she's still growing. So I knew this is another case and point of learning. So as we were going down, she was so excited. There was a situation that she gave me a story that happened in her school, where a parent, not in her class, but they witnessed where a parent came and she was causing a lot of drama and commotion because I don't know what happened with the other child and all that. So at the back of my mind, maybe she was expecting me to do the same. But when we got to my neighbor's door, I knocked and then I called him. And when the boy saw us, he immediately ran to his room and he locked himself in his room. At that particular point, I knew, okay, so this language is not tolerated in their home. So the boy knew he made a mistake the moment he saw Ayana and myself at their door. So the moment he ran, one of his guardians came and I told them, your son and my daughter, they are friends and they do play together. However, there is a situation that came up today and I felt like I'm not going to let it go under the bus, because if it continues, if it happens again, I'm not going to allow your son to be playing with my daughter, because I do not tolerate such language and such behavior. So when Ayana expressed herself, I could tell it's not a language that the guardian or the household tolerates. And they said they were going to deal with it and talk to the young boy. And the neighbor actually was like, thank you for handling this so well. I'm going to talk to him, and trust me, it's not going to be repeated. And I said, okay, thank you. When it was about time for her to go to bed, we were having a small conversation, and she told me, I asked her what did she learn from today, from the situation, because most of the time I like to ask her and see what she has picked from her life experiences. So she told me, I saw and I learned that next time when someone insults me, I will tell them not to repeat it again. And if they repeat it again, I will not be their friend. She knows there is a particular limit to the insults and the boundaries. At least she also learned how to handle such a situation in case it arises again. So most of the time we tolerate red flags because of how we were brought up. And at this particular point, if you feel like you're tolerating too many red flags, and when you write down that list and you notice that you are tolerating so many things from that list that you know are red flags, or maybe you tolerated them in the previous relationship, it's time for you to start working on yourself. It's time for you to actually ask God to heal you from childhood traumas and childhood wounds. The Bible says God heals our wounds. He is the healer. We know God as a healer, but most of the time we go to God with our physical pain and physical problems and maybe diseases and infirmities, but we do not go to God and ask him to heal your traumas or childhood wounds so that we do not end up bleeding on people. Today I want to pose a reminder to everybody who's listening to me. Go to God and write down those things that you saw when you were growing up and they were not okay. Write them down and ask God to heal those wounds. God heals. Yeah, and the Bible says he heals the brokenhearted. He even heals emotions. Spiritual discernment gets ignored. Most of the time, God warns us through unease or confusion or lack of peace. The moment you're confused and you cannot understand what is happening, or maybe you're feeling uneasy anytime someone does something, you're around this particular person, you do not have peace when you're talking to them or something is happening, trust me, that is the voice of God. And most of the time, discernment whispers before destruction shouts. I'm going to give you guys an example of Samson and Delilah. So Samson, I know we all know him, but when I was thinking about this episode and this podcast, I remember that story and I was looking at Samson. Probably when you look at him, I feel like he didn't have a very nice childhood. Reason being, this guy, first of all, God talked about him because these things actually intermarry. Your childhood, your boundaries, and your discernment, because right now we're talking about discernment. If you do not have boundaries and you discern something, the Lord speaks to you and he tells you, or maybe you have a discernment about a certain red flag, you're uneasy, but you do not have boundaries. Emotions are going to cover and override the voice of God, and you're actually going to walk through the red flags. Back to Samson. God gave him an instruction and he told him, do not tell anybody your secret, the secret to your strength. Samson was someone who walked with God and God used him to do, big and epic things. But the moment he got some sort of love and affection, which I feel like, or security, which I feel like is something that he kind of lacked when he was growing up, he trauma bonded, or he connected with Delilah so much. Delilah asks the first time, the second time. He was not even married to her. First of all, he's unequally yoked. Secondly, this lady was just paid, to get down with him and find out this secret. So this guy, Samson, he eventually caves in. And eventually, we all know the story, how it went. He lost everything and all that. Later on, he died, which I feel like it was premature death because of the red flags this guy actually looked into like this and he kind of assumed them and he lost his life because that was premature death. God was not yet done with Samson. So discernment works out the moment we are emotionally entangled, and I feel like it is something that most of us tend to ignore and assume. The next one is the fear of starting over. We have so much fear of the unknown, and you're afraid of starting over that you're really holding on to someone. If, for example, someone has been single for so long, the moment you get someone, maybe you feel like your time clock, your clock is ticking or time is moving so much and you're getting older. The moment you get someone and they are not it, most of the people tend to stick to them because they have the fear of starting over. You don't know when you're going to get another person, or maybe you've been married to someone for so long, or maybe you've been in a relationship with someone and you have the fear of starting over. You don't even know you're going to start. So most of the time we tend to sit and tolerate the red flags which are in future going to damage us so much. So the fear of starting over is another big problem, whereby we need to overcome fear, because fear, the moment you open the door of fear, now the devil comes in like a flood. The last one is hope. Hope is powerful, but sometimes hope can be too powerful. I know this one might be a bit contradictory, but give me a minute. I'm headed somewhere. There is a point when hope is too powerful that reality, you cannot even see the reality. Hope dims the reality. Because if someone started with slapping you, tomorrow he's punching you. The next day he gives you 3 or 4 blows. Then the other day he takes maybe a flask, a thermos that is next to you or next on the table, and he hits you on the head with it. You're too hopeful. You're not even seeing the reality. I'm not saying people don't change. Please don't get me out of context. I'm saying too much hope sometimes is dangerous when it comes to red flags, because it blinds our eyes from seeing the reality and the red flags. And by the time you're out of that relationship, if you make it alive, in the context of maybe domestic violence, you'll be so beaten and battered by life before you even raise your head and move or make a move in your life. These red flags that you ignored because you're too hopeful, oh my goodness, they're going to be so bad. You're going to be affected so badly. I had reasons to walk out of my previous relationship 3 weeks in. 3 weeks in, I'm telling you. By the time I was 1 year into the relationship, I had the chance to leave actually, and I left, but I went back because of the fear of starting over. So when I'm telling you guys these points, I've literally used myself as a case study in majority of them and the mistakes that I did before. And by the time I left 6 years down the line, girl, even a simple compliment of "you're beautiful," I could not hear it because I could not see myself. I was broken. The life in me was squeezed out. I had no self-esteem. Any outfit I wore looked bad because I could not even see myself as a beautiful lady. And I really hope that you guys have picked something from this episode, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And if you know someone who's going to benefit from this episode, please share the link, share with them this podcast, and let us know the kind of red flags, also reasons as to why we overlook red flags. I would love to know more reasons, because I know this topic is so broad and we have not even exhausted it. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I'm your host, Agatha Kirete. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Follow us on our socials, Rooted and Blooming, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Instagram, on TikTok. And I'm going to see you on the next one.